Hi, my name is Jonah Nazarian, and I go to UCLA.
I'm Benjamin Levy, and I go to the University of Michigan.
Hi, I'm Taylor Shaw, and I'm a student at Rutgers University, New Brunswick.
No.
I'm David Yanovich. I go to Columbia University. Columbia University is filled from top to bottom from the students who every single day in the classroom I see wearing keffiyehs, the signature piece of Yasser Arafat, notable terrorist, all the way up to the teachers' assistants who penalize us and give us bad grades and try to encourage their students to go to the encampments. The system is on to the administrators who continue to support these professors who, like Joseph Massad, who has been saying that the October 7th attacks are astonishing and beautiful. I should say it's rotten from the bottom up.
The only sign that we even had that we were Jewish students on campus, we were both wearing our stars. And as we were walking near the encampment, because that's just from where my dorm is to Hillel, I need to go by there, we were both told things like, "You Zionist pigs should go die. The state of Israel doesn't deserve to exist," and other lines along that.
Should Jewish students come to your university? Let's say someone is a rising high school senior. They need to start to decide where they're going to apply to school. Should they be applying to and accepting an offer from UCLA, from Michigan, from Rutgers, from Columbia? What do you think?
What I will say is this. After the events of October 7th, the Jewish community was deeply affected on UCLA's campus, but in the months following, we have come together like no Jewish community that I've ever been a part of. With all the anti-Semitism that we're facing, if we lead to less Jewish students coming to campus, that means that they're winning. We can't allow that to happen. We have to show up even stronger, and we have to make sure that our voices are heard.
What about Columbia? Should Jewish students come to Columbia?
I would push back a little bit on any Jewish student who wants to come to Columbia. I would say the administration has been proven that they're unwilling and unable to help our Jewish students feel safe. I'd say if a Jewish student wants to attend Columbia, it should be that they are ready, willing, and able to put up a fight for the Jewish community, and they should have that in mind when they're applying and during their 4-year tenure at the university. But if they just want a quiet, simple education and without the political activism, I'd say Columbia is definitely the wrong place for them.
A message that you want to get out that needs to be heard that hasn't been heard?
I'd say what needs to be known is that this indoctrination is happening on a level that is beyond the control of the students at this point, honestly, and it needs to be addressed by the government or by the chancellors of our schools. I have an econ class, not related to politics at all, introductory to macroeconomics. The teacher, every chance that she gets, likes to mention Israel's occupational regime. She was talking about bonds in our class, and she talked about how after October 7th, Israel issued more bonds. The reason? She said it was to further fund their occupation. Now, I don't see how that is relevant to an economics course, and I don't see how that's what should be taught to students. It's indoctrinating them. It's not allowing them to think for themselves. It's lies. It's not the truth.
Well, who else maybe has something else that they think is the most misunderstood part of what's going on the campuses to people on the outside? Who has something that stands out to them?
To highlight that just like a little more about like the misunderstoodness is how a lot of people on campus view these pro-Palestinian demonstrations as like some form of resistance. At my school, they highlight these demonstrations as a student intifada. That's like insane. The intifada killed thousands and thousands of innocent civilians in Israel all throughout like the 2000s. And I just think that what's like very misunderstood is how it is like a resistance when it's really not.
Is the most misunderstood element of what's going on the campuses for people who aren't there? What's the part of this story that's the most misunderstood by people who aren't on the ground the way you are?
So I think that there's kind of two main reasons for this. The first being when it comes to the GSIs and like graduate student instructors who are in charge of many of the courses on campus. A lot of them are very much like they're involved in the encampments, they're involved in many of the, I guess, pro-Palestinian movements on campus. So what they'll do is when there's some sort of pro-Palestinian event coming up, they'll cancel class for the day. They'll sometimes even give extra credit to students for going to those events, which incentivizes people to go to them, or even if they're not being incentivized to go to them, they won't have other outlying priorities or like classes or anything else they need to get done, but they need to go.
Wow, David, what about Columbia? It's been in the headlines over the course of the year, especially the last few months. What can you tell us about how you've experienced that?
A lot of stories I can tell. First, in the days following October 7th, I recall the crime for wearing a Star of David necklace. I was told fuck the Jews. I was told free Palestine screamed at me. So it's very obvious that this movement from the beginning has been a way for anti-Semites to co-opt the pro-Palestinian movement in order to harass and intimidate and strike fear into the Jewish community of Columbia. In the following months, I've been told things like, go back to Poland, you don't belong here, terrorist, baby killer, all for the crime of being Jewish in my campus. It is a travesty that the administration is not doing anything, and that the Jewish students in Columbia have to keep facing this every single day.
Now, Jonah, you go to UCLA, and one part of the UCLA story has been the activism on the pro-Israel side, on the Jewish side, which has also made some headlines. I want you to try to speak to that, and also maybe get to the question why you think that at UCLA, the pro-Israel activity has been more prominent than it seems to have been at some of the other campuses.
Absolutely. So UCLA is in the heart of one of the biggest Persian Jewish communities in the world. And Persian Jews, like me, my parents had to flee Iran because of religious persecution. Israel was our safe haven, and because of that, we understand the importance for Israel's existence and the importance for Zionism. So when they see that anti-Semitism is happening in their own backyards, not only are many of the Persian Jewish students who attend the university going to stand up and do what's right because they know their families had to escape anti-Semitism before, but we have a very strong familial connection with everyone around us. And so those Persian Jewish families showed up to campus, as did many other Jewish families in the neighborhood surrounding, and they really made it known that anti-Semitism will not be tolerated on our campus, and that we have a community surrounding and supporting Jewish students at UCLA.
What can the Israeli society do, for that matter, American Jewish society do, to help support you more, to give you more, to help give you things that you need that you're not getting? What more is it that everyone else can do to support you in what you're facing at Columbia or at Michigan or at UCLA or at Rutgers?
I think one of the biggest things that specifically the Israeli government could try to work on is improving its media presence, and more so positive media presence in the US. From what I've noticed, aside from about Fox News, there's very few news sources in the US that are or big news networks in the US that are covering, I guess, from a not even a pro-Israel side, that from a non-pro-Palestinian side, even a neutral news network. You get to see both sides of what's going on versus seeing just when Israel does some sort of operation to Gaza into some mission, but you don't see what the result of that is, or you don't see why they're doing it in the first place. So I think if the Israeli government could try to work on getting more interviews, getting more of what they're doing out there, so the world can see, hey, it's not just a one-sided genocide as people are claiming, it's actually a war.
To bounce off of that, like on top of more media presence from like the Israeli society in general, I just think that Jews across the world really need to come together, and specifically in America, we need more on the ground help from these organizations. Like this year, personally on my campus, like outside of like the ICC and like Hasbara really having a presence on campus, I felt pretty abandoned by all these organizations that claim to have their help when they're nowhere to be seen. You know, it's like you could throw money, all of this help at us, but we need them on the ground providing us, not only us, but with like our universities, with educational resources, so that these students can truly understand what is going on these campuses, because they're not believing us, denying that these things actually occurred. Like, we need these organizations to truly be on the ground helping us fight it. We can't do this alone.